Hello everyone. Welcome to Wool and Spinning. My name is Rachel. I hope that this finds you all very well. I am just hoping that sound is okay. Can you guys let me know? That would be wonderful if you can make sure that we can hear me and that everything's good and that all is well. This is episode 261, which is crazy. I hope that you guys are doing really super well. Right before I went to press play, everything was prepped, everything was ready, and then all of a sudden I realized that the battery in the microphone was actually dead, that it was flashing red. So I was like, oh, not helpful. So anyways, I just had to run and grab a battery really quickly. I keep one right here and it's gone missing. So I'm thinking one of the kids grabbed it, but that's okay. It has been a week. I hope that you guys have had a really good February thus far. Ours has been a little bit like this. James came down extremely sick a week ago Sunday night, and he's kind of taken all week to bounce back. He's never been quite that sick before. Maybe when he was a year and he had croup and we were in a remote area of British Columbia and I just had to walk up and down the beach all night because there was no urgent care center or emergency or anywhere to take him and to go. But other than that, like, he's actually like not really been sick. So that was very tiring. And so the week's just kind of gone off the rails. I feel like I haven't seen anyone. I feel like I haven't talked to anybody. I've texted with a few of my friends, but it's not been like, getting together and having an actual conversation. So it's been really weird. So anyhow, it's kind of been a bit of a week. I have been doing this and it has been really fun, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Dion says it's been torture waiting for you to tell us how you will use your stash. I had forgotten last show I had said that I will take photos of the new organization of like how we've done everything and what I've done and all of how I've organized the yarn and everything. And honest to goodness, the way that this week went, I just did not even have a moment to stop and take photos and move things out of the way so that you guys could really see. I think, Dion, you're mentioning about my fiber stash too, that I've been trying to figure out how to stash down. And the other thing has been like using up my yarn stash. So what I've been doing is like going through all of my yarn stash, going through, bagging everything up, putting it labeled in bags and everything, and then trying to figure out like, how I can use all of it and what projects I want to do and want to make. My fiber stash, I have no idea how I'm going to get through it all. I don't have a massive stash, but I have 18 bins of stash, like bins of fiber. And I don't know what the best approach is to try to get through all of that stuff. And I think the reality is not bringing any more in is part of the key to that. And then trying to figure out and going through everything. I inventoried everything a couple of years ago, but I almost need to sort of look at what's in there. See, it's a non-trivial amount. You're absolutely right, Rebecca. The problem is some of it is like there's a part of a fleece in it, so the bin is like half empty. But then there's the time needed to actually process said fleece. There is part of me that kind of just wants to give more than half of it away, and just start fresh. And then there's the other part of me that's like, well, a lot of the stuff that I bought and that I have in my stash, I actually really would like to do something with. But then what do I do with it once it's yarn? And that's part of where I'm running into some problems, is because I don't want to continue to just make things for the sake of making. I have a huge drawer full of shawls that I don't wear. And I have, space bags that they're vacuum sealed that are sweaters that I don't wear. And I've put some of them on Etsy and I've started to sell some of my stuff, but it's hard to know sort of what to do in terms of really being intentional about what I'm making and what I'm doing. So I would love to hear from you guys how you are going to stash down. I do not want to end up with a stash and with not just fiber, but wool and yarn and tools and looms and wheels that are like beyond life expectancy usability. Like, I just turned 40. I hope that I live another 60 years. But if I have all this stuff. I want to really use it. I don't want it to sit there. Like, I received the beautiful spinning pad from Sam just after Christmas. I've got it filled with the lentils and I've got it all sealed up and everything. And the beautiful spinning spoon from Eve. And like, I haven't been able to use any of that stuff. Like, I just can't get to things. I will say I'm reading a phenomenal book. I really needed something light this past week. If you guys have not read this, it is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. It is set in the 1950s and 60s with all of the things that happened in the 1950s and 60s. It is brilliant. It is actually laugh out loud funny. So I'm almost finished. I would highly recommend finding it at the library and getting it out. It's a quick read. It's a light read. It's incredibly funny. It's very insightful. It's been a really wonderful palate cleanser for me because I've been reading some really heavy books lately, and I just was like, I need something lighter, and my mom gave this to me and I put it on her bookshelf. Didn't think anything of it, and then we were running out the door for an eye appointment for my mom because that's the other thing that's been going on, and I just grabbed it on a whim and started reading it because there was nothing else to do in the waiting room and the kids were reading their books, and I can't put it down. I'm really enjoying it. So huge book recommendation. Maybe assign parts of your stash specific projects. That's a great idea because, Dorothy, if you can't identify a project, maybe it's time to let it go. I think that's a really wonderful idea. The other thing too is the idea of making something with the intention of selling it. So with the intention of putting it on Etsy and with the intention of being part of sort of the, being a maker, being a spinner who knits, who's creating really beautiful handmade one-of-a-kind pieces and putting that up in my Etsy shop with the intention of moving it along and not keeping it. And obviously there's a price tag that goes with that, but there are people out there that don't want and aren't interested in making it themselves, but they value those handmade items. So there is that. Yeah. Sounds like a Ravelry thread. Let's talk about it in a discussion thread. Absolutely, Rebecca, if you want to start one, that would be wonderful. Ideas to stash down, ideas to rid ourselves of stash beyond life expectancy. What's that acronym, Eve? Stash beyond life expectancy. It's like, you have way too much, you're not going to use it before you come to the end of your making life, because there's lifespan, but then there's also health span. So how long you're going to live for and be healthy and active and able to do these things. And then of course there's your lifespan. And for me, I would like to have both, where I'm happy and active and able to do the making as long as possible. And that's, a lot of the reason behind being really super active and giving myself breaks and looking after my hands and going for a walk every day, even if it's just on my walking treadmill, and just all those things that contribute to a really long, healthy, active lifespan. Sable, thank you, you guys. Stash acquisition beyond life expectancy. Yeah, thank you. Oh, thanks, Christine. She threw it into the chat. Sam says you have my address. You might be receiving some things. Diana says, a few years ago, I gave away a lot of my shawls, the ones that I wasn't wearing. It is great to see them on other people. I think actually, Diana, that's very insightful. And there is a part of me that thinks that that's exactly what I should do. And I did put some of them up in my Etsy shop, and some of them have gone on to new homes. And that's actually been really, really gratifying. I'm surprised how much I enjoyed doing that. Anyhow, I will take some photos of what I've done in with a wardrobe and how I've organized my yarn, and then I'll as I figure out what I'm going to do with my stash, I will continue to share. And Dion, it sounds like you're interested in this conversation as well, so let's brainstorm some ideas and figure some things out, because I think it's really important. In the show today, we are going to talk a lot about the year of color. I kind of fell down a bit of a sampling rabbit hole, as you can see to my right hand side here, your left, and oh no, it's my left as well. On the screen it's my right, and in real life it's my left. So anyhow, it doesn't matter. I've fallen down a bit of a sampling rabbit hole. I showed these to my family last night, and Glenda and Eve and Dorothy laughed at me this morning when I shared with them. Nora says to me when I showed them to them last night, I was like, look at all these. Nora says to me, straight face, she's like, that's it? kind of summed up the week, to be honest with you guys. I was sort of like, yeah, that feels about right. Like just getting completely ricocheted around by life. So there's 35 samples here thus far, and I have plans for more. So we'll be talking about this today. And I also have a giveaway to announce. So I meant to do this on the last show. I had an appointment after the last live stream. That's why I had to end it so abruptly. I'm very sorry that coincided. It just was really poor timing. But we do have a giveaway today, and I'll announce that after the intro. All right, so let's start off with the giveaway. This is a very generous gift for me to give to you guys from the School of Sweet Georgia, sweetgeorgiayarns.com, schoolofsweetgeorgia.com. And the affiliate links to join the school are down below in the down bar. That's how instructors are paid for their content when it is filmed, recorded, uploaded onto the school. So by using the affiliate link, whether it, if you're joining for a specific instructor, it really kind of helps that instructor out a little bit to ensure that they're being valued for their work. I don't really want to open this, but basically my luxury workshop just went live on the School of Sweet Georgia earlier this month. It was like February 5th or something. And it's the culmination of all of the work that we did here at Wool & Spinning over the last 2 years. And actually, Rebecca very, very kindly, thank you so much, Rebecca, went through the Wool Circle Index, and she's made like seasons. So there's like season 1 and then season 2. And one of them is the season that was basically like all of the luxury fibers. So all of the like luxury spins that we did, we spun through all of these kits that Sweet Georgia made to go with the workshop. We spun through stuff from my stash. We spun through stuff that I acquired. We did some cotton spinning in there as well. We did a whole bunch of stuff. Anyhow, out of all of that work that was part of Spinning Pearls, 51 Yarns, our 51 Yarns spin along that was based on J.C. Boggs Faulkner's book. We did that study for 2 years, and then also our year of luxury that was the year 2022 that just finished this past December. All of that work is what culminated into providing the content for the workshop on the School of Sweet Georgia. So it just launched this month, and what they launched first was the silk module. So the first part of the workshop, and this is the kit for the silks that go with that workshop. So maybe I will open this. I didn't want to. It's so beautifully packed, you guys. But maybe I will just to show you. Anyhow, this is the silk kit. I'll reseal it for whoever wins it. I'll send it to you sealed. Then you can open it. But it's all beautifully packed inside. I'm not going to open this up, but it's all the silk fibers. And I feel like it's all there. So there's Tussa silk, Bombyx silk, there is Tassar, there's like Peduncle, Muga, Erie. It's all there for you to spin through. So this goes with the silk module, and then you spin through all of this, and you sort of get the best of both worlds in terms of your learning, not just watching it and sort of soaking up the knowledge as I spin at the wheel and as I talk about things, but also you get to follow along with me and do it yourself. So if you would like to enter to win this, I would like to run a wee bit of a survey. I want to know from you guys what you have found to be, what is your favorite thing in the Wool & Spinning community? What is something, and you don't have to be a patron to enter, this is open for everyone. So even if you're not a part of the Wool & Spinning community, you know, what is it that's your favorite part? Do you just watch the podcast and that's your favorite thing? Do you participate in the Ravelry group? Is that your favorite thing? You know, just what is your favorite thing? The second question is the way that I can get a hold of you if you win. So the second part is give me something that I can get in touch with you via. So like a Ravelry username, your Slack username. I'm gonna pick on Dion just because she's the perfect, like I thought of her this morning. She is on the Slack channel as Dion C. So if you put in that Dion C, I'll know that it's you, Dion. You know, if you're on Ravelry as like, you know, Rebby J, because you're Rebecca, just put Rebby J brackets Ravelry, so that I know where to find you. So brackets Slack, brackets Ravelry. If you're not on either of those places and you want me to just call out your name on the show, you can put your name in. I just need a way to get in touch with you if your name is drawn. But don't put like your email address or like, you know, a personal information. Like try to keep it, try to keep it like somewhere that I can find you, but not, you know, it doesn't need to be like personal information. So tell me what your favorite thing is about wool and spinning so that Rebecca and I can do more of that. And then let me figure out a way to get in touch with you. So that is it. I hope you win. I wish I could give it to you all. I wish you all would win. Dion says I never win, so there. Oh, I feel you. I'm the same way. Diane says I need to stash down. Oh, pretty SOS fiber. I know, right? Isn't that the truth? So welcome, Brittany. It's good to see you. I'm glad that you're here. I left all my stash. Kirsten says, I left all my stash at the house I own with my sister when I got married 3 years ago. Oh my gosh. Maybe your sister will use some of it, maybe. Yeah, I would love to continue having this larger stash conversation just to sort of find a way forward. I think there is a way forward, and I think it's just a matter of figuring it out. So let's talk about the year of color. So so there's some context to this and some background to this. So let me start sort of with that. The year of color is something that Rebecca and I have been working on for you guys since January. So we started working on the year of color back January 1st. And we basically like started to work through Deb Menz's book, Color and Spinning. It was actually Rebecca's suggestion in the end. We started off with ColorWorks and then we pivoted to Color and Spinning because Rebecca had the very insightful thought that because ColorWorks is sort of more of a general fiber artist's book, and it's excellent, don't get me wrong, it's more of an overview and it talks about all different fiber arts. And whereas Color and Spinning is specifically for hand spinners who are making yarn and wanting to work with color. So it's a little bit more specific. We also didn't want that to be a barrier to entry because the book is it's 2004. It's getting up to 20 years old, and it's getting harder and harder to find. And for some people, especially if they don't live in the States, which many of us don't, shipping and exchange rates and whatnot, VAT, taxes, duty, all that stuff, it really affects being able to get some of these books. I feel like Rebecca was going to write to Interweave and ask them or Long Thread Media if they could reprint the book. I feel like that was like something that she had mentioned to me, which made me laugh, and I love that she might write a letter because my dad used to write letters. Anyhow, so we took that book and her and I have started looking at sort of spinning color and all of these different things and trying to put it into a more digestible format for you guys. So for January, all of that content that was released is all available. If you go in the down bar, there's indexes available for all of the content. The housekeeping post for January, it has all the links to all the stuff that was released for January. So now for February, the Spinning Pearls has already been released. The vlog that I do every month for the patrons of the wool and spinning community. It's on optical mixing and creating mud. And then the Wool Circle this month is exploring saturation and exploring value. That one streamed yesterday. So if you're in the Wool Circle tier on Patreon, you've got access to those streams that just happened this month as well. And then coming up later, there's going to be a second Spinning Pearls. We started this in January. That's live streamed for everybody, so everyone's welcome. next Tuesday, same time as the podcast, 10 a.m. Pacific, and we'll talk about the application of the theory. So we'll look at optical mixing and creating mud and stuff. We'll actually apply it. We'll do community participation at the same time. All the stuff, the call that I put out to the community around, optical mixing, creating mud, show us your samples, that's all going to be in the part 2 vlog. So that's coming up next Tuesday at 10 a.m. So that's kind of what you need to know for what's going on this month. And if you have any questions, please just throw them in the comments down below so that I can help you to navigate it all. Sometimes it's just finding a link can be a little bit challenging, or figuring out where something is when you're first trying to figure it out. It's a little bit overwhelming. I totally understand. Rebecca and I are here to help you, so please just ask and we'll help to direct you. And Rebecca's been really wonderful. This past week I've been quite absent in the Ravelry group. It's just been, I haven't actually gotten online very much because of James being home and needing so much from me, which is fine. Obviously I'm mom, nurse, I get to play that role very, very infrequently where the kids are that sick. But it meant I couldn't get online very much. So I looked at the Ravelry group, I looked at Slack, but I haven't been super interactive. So thank you guys for just being patient. At least for this year, spinning pearls and the wool circle complement and blend with each other, which is great for me. Actually, Alberto, I'm really hoping, and Rebecca, obviously, same. We're hoping that going forward, now that I'm not doing everything, and now that I'm not a one-man show, and I've got that support from Rebecca and that just amazing amount of knowledge from her, her energy, her enthusiasm, all that stuff. The hope is that's like gonna be the future, that the wool circle and spinning pearls will always complement each other from now on. So that's the plan. So what have I been doing? This is really super fun. Okay, so what I have been doing, I'll show you sort of individually, and then I'll go to the product camera and we'll look at these things sort of one by one. But basically what I've been working on, and I'll do the slideshow first so it just kind of shows you what I've been doing while I talk about what I've been doing. So what I did was my fiber got lost in the mail. So that's why my sampling took a lot longer to get started than everybody else. But many people have already been doing their stuff. Oh, how did that get in there? That's so weird. That random photo should not be in there. Huh. Okay, let's get rid of that. Random. Anyhow, so my fiber got lost in the mail. So I finally received it, and it's just Corriedale and in sort of the normal suspects. I did have to make my own cyan though for the CMY color wheel, which I'll talk about later. But I ordered red, yellow, blue, and then a combination of, like, I ordered turquoise and another blue that actually won't work to make the cyan. I had to play with some different ratios to get the right cyan for the CMY color wheel. And then I ordered black, and I ordered white and magenta. And these are sort of some of the initial photos of the results that I got. So what I started doing was portioning things up, and I started trying to figure out sort of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to create. So there's a few things that I'm hoping to do with this year, and it'll just take me as long as it takes me. You guys also know that I'm quite burned out on my pressed flowers right now, which is in the background. It's back here on my dress form. Diana is wearing it for me so that I can look at it and I can kind of mull it over and think about it and think about the project and think about kind of where I'm at. As you can see, I'm quite far down on the button band now, and I've started to seam it just so that I don't knit the button band too long, but I might have to unpick it and redo it. Another story, another time. So with that on the back burner, I sort of just wanted a bit of a break from something that was so resource heavy in terms of what it needed from me, making decisions, trying to figure out if I should rip and reknit. Just I needed some distance. She needed to be in the corner on a timeout. I needed to have a palette cleanser and do some other things. So I started looking at the fiber and looking at the yarn and looking at what I had and what I had ordered. And I started thinking about where I could start. Like, how could I just dip my toes in a way that felt accessible, that felt like I could do something and get something done, have a win, right? Like, sometimes you just need a win. And so I took the red, yellow, and blue, and I made the RYB color wheel. So I took the RYB the red, yellow, and blue, and I made the color wheel. And I took, the red is blown out here in the photo, you can see that, but I took those 3 colors, I spun them up, and then I blended on my hand cards. I blended for purple 50-50, and I blended for orange and green 50-50 as well. And that made the color wheel. And you can see from the orange that the, let me just go to the product so you guys can see. So you can see from the, and this was where it got really interesting. So the yellow skein is on the RYB color wheel right now. So I have it taken out. But you can see that the blue, the purple is really quite red. And this is quite a warm red. So it made a really warm orange. And it made like a really, these colors, when I showed them to Mike, this is not my favorite color wheel. I actually do kind of prefer the CMY color wheel, but it's funny working with these colors and working with the idea of like, you know, the CMY color wheel. It's used in digital printing. It's used as a subtractive color model where you have white and then you're adding color on top to create color. Whereas this is the traditional painter's palette. And I don't feel really super equipped to speak in lots and lots of detail about the reasons for these 2 color wheels being so different. And but the one thing that I will say is that you know, this color wheel has a lot of nuances to it, and adding black often helps to balance it and to find the correct color in this color wheel. Whereas this one doesn't need all of those tweaks and it doesn't have all those nuances. And so after I made this initial color wheel, I just felt like, like this is really, really beautiful. And the blue is so rich. And because this ended up being quite a warm purple, I found it actually really difficult to tell whether or not the blue was quite warm or quite cool. This green came out really, really beautiful. And I felt like I kind of almost needed another blue next to this one that would help. Like I wish I had ordered a second blue so that the 2 blues next to each other, I would then be able to tell if one was warm, which one was warm and which one was cool. Because inevitably one of them would have been warmer and one of them would have been cooler. Whereas like the red, it was so obvious right away that this is a really, really warm red. So again, I wish I had ordered a warm red and a cool red. And same with the yellow, a warm yellow and a cool yellow. And I had ordered all of this before Katrina had done her interview with Rebecca on the Wool Circle. And I also ordered all of this before I had talked to Amanda. So I was sort of like, 2 people who I really appreciate for their color expertise. And I feel so much richer for knowing both of them and for having them both around us and in our community and whatnot. And then I was sort of like, I wish I had done that. So, but regardless, that kind of left me with this hankering to want to do more. So from there, thank you, Diana. She says, gorgeous, gorgeous skeins. Dion says, a mama's work is never done. Isn't that the truth, Dion? So true. So from there, I kind of already spoilered, Brittany says CMYK is my favorite way to dye. So I would love to know, Brittany, I've heard that from several people. I know Felicia, that's her favorite as well. I would love to hear from you why that's the case. Is it because of those nuances? Is it because it feels more modern? Is it because you like the dyes better? Like what is it about CMYK that you prefer? Because I would love to know. Scarlet is a cool red. Chili pepper is a warm red. I know the Ashford colors. Yes, and these aren't Ashford colors, so I do wonder, because this one is called Scarlet. This is actually called Scarlet Red, but it's very, very warm. So it makes me wonder, Diana, if if they've labeled the colors differently, or if I got another red, if it would be a warmer red and this would end up actually being quite cool. So that's where I wish I had had those comparisons. And then this is the CMY. So I had to actually make the cyan. I didn't have, there wasn't an option to choose a turquoisey cyan that was correct, that was cool enough. They were all too warm, too tealy, too green. So not warm, but too green. Too much yellow, and so that didn't work. But this ended up, I thought this overall ended up working out really super well. This magenta, it really is magenta. I feel like this is registering as more of a pink, but it really is a magenta. And the purple came out really pretty. It's very cool. But again, I wish I had comparisons and other things. You can see what it looks like here knit up. So really, really, really fun. The yellow is very warm, so I wish I had a cooler yellow. And again, like, not knowing what I kind of know now, even after doing Unit 2 for my Ontario hand weavers and spinners and reading several books and having to take copious notes and whatnot, until you really start working with this stuff in person in front of you at your blending board or your drum carder or your hand cards, and you actually have the fiber in hand or you're dyeing it yourself, it's really hard to tell where this stuff lands and where it all falls. It's changed the way that I see things now that I've actually got it in front of me and now that I'm actually working with it. So yeah, Rebecca says your purple on the RYB looks very nice. Mostly my RYB purples seem to be very mauve and subdued. Super interesting. Alberto says I had the same problem with cyan. The ones I got were a dark cyan, and I just had to adjust my expectations and move forward. Not sure what happened with the dyers going dark. Oh, that's very interesting, Alberto. Makes you wonder like what they were using, like whether they were adding black. Always tricky when relying on computer screens. Absolutely, Sam, that's part of the problem. Brittany says definitely more modern. So this is when I asked her about the CMYK. She says definitely more modern, and I find I have a much larger color variety on the white bases, even on grays. Super, yeah. Black has a huge effect on those color recipes. Some blacks lean blue or purple, depends. Yes, that is one big problem with purple, or sorry, with black. So from there, let me go back. So from there, I did the color wheel. So I showed you guys this already. So this was the CMY color wheel, and I had a lot of fun doing this one, and I actually decided to keep working in CMY as I felt like I was sort of amassing knowledge as I was going. I feel like where I'll be in a year, like where we'll be at the end of 2023 compared to where we are now, honestly, like it's gonna, I think most of us are gonna have our minds blown, like just again and again and again and again. The more that we work with color, the more we understand color, the more that we, you know, try to understand this stuff, work with it on our own, talk to one another, all that kind of stuff. So from there, I went to complement blend, so desaturating. We talked to my mom about this on the podcast on Wool and Spinning Radio for February. We interviewed my mom and she talked to me and Rebecca, and I have to find the right, these I fell in love with. I absolutely fell in love with these. And it's really interesting to me that my favorite ones, this was when I started to think that maybe CMYK was sort of, I should probably talk about it as CMYK. This was when I started to think that maybe CMYK, part of the reason why I loved it and part of the reason why I struggled with it was the nuances and the fact that there was so much and so much richness that was possible. But then this was when I really started to appreciate the black, or sorry, the RYB. This was when I was like, oh, wait a second, hang on a moment. Because I really love, as you can see from what I'm wearing, I really love the moody, dark gray. I don't look great in straight gray, like a 50-50 gray. That's not a great color on me. I look very washed out, probably because I'm so fair, so it just makes all of me look very monochromatic. But these kind of colors I am so drawn to. And when I did the complement blends and we were looking at desaturation, which Rebecca talks about in episode 88 of the Wool Circle, this was when I was like, oh, oh. So these are the RYB samples of the complements, and these are the CMY complement samples. So this one was yellow and purple, and this is yellow and purple over here in RYB. So this was using the red versus using magenta. So these are 50% yellow, and then 25% blue, 25% red, 25% cyan, 25% magenta. So you can see how different they are. I thought this is actually probably one of my favorite samples that came out. I was so pleased with this one. And then these two here in the middle, this is magenta with green. So this is 50% magenta, 25% cyan, 25% yellow. And then this one is my absolute most favorite sample of all of them. And this is 50% scarlet red and 25% blue and 25% yellow. And then these final ones, which I just absolutely love. You can see how purple this one is. It's a chromatic gray, but it's just beautiful. This one here is 50% cyan, 25% magenta, 25% yellow. So it's blue mixed with orange. And then same with this one, except that instead of red, or instead of magenta, it's red. And instead of cyan, it's blue. And this one is so rich. These three, I think, they're just so rich. They're so rich. They're interesting. There's depth. There's texture. There's even though I blended them really quite well on my blending board, there's still nuance to them. There's interest. These ones are very modern grays. Really beautiful. Yeah. Chromatic gray, Kirsten, is a color. So it's on the value scale, it would register somewhere in the grays on your value scale, but they have a color to them. So there's the chromatic scale, and then there's the achromatic scale. Achromatic is black and white, and some of these, like they're not. They don't have a really super strong color. They don't lean one way or the other. It's not like it's kind of a blue gray when we talk about stuff being like a blue gray or a red gray, a yellow gray. That's sort of what we're talking about. We're actually going to go into chromatic versus achromatic. We're going into that in Spinning Pearls in March. It's coming up. I'm writing that content right now, and I'll be able to articulate it a lot more clearly then. So hang tight, Kirsten, and maybe somebody else. I don't think Amanda's here today, but sometimes she can wing off definitions that are really, really, really helpful. So then I wanted to get really creative, and I jumped into triadic blends. So this actually goes with our contrast of hue discussion for March. So in March, the chromatic gray content that I'm writing right now is for April, because that's when we get into contrast of value. And right for March, we are talking about contrast of hue. So that's what we're going to talk about next. So this is a little bit of a teaser for that content coming up in March, is these triadic colors. So the triadics are here. I have to find everything. It's all labeled, but I just have to find it all. Okay, so this is my first triadic, and this is what I absolutely fell in love with. So this is RYB, and I did it as a scale from the tint all the way down to the shade. And this is 30, 30, 30. It's 30. It's a third. RYB. So it's red, yellow, and blue, and this is sort of what it made, and it made this just really, really great, what we would call mud, like sort of a brown. When you take all of the colors, blend them together, you get sort of this beautiful, rich, kind of brown, warm brown kind of color. And then I added 50-50 black. So I took the same blend, but I added black 50%, and it just brought it right down to dark shade. But again, there's depth and there's texture, there's richness to it, heathering. And then I did 50-50 white. So I took it the other way, and that was sort of the result. And I just fell in love with these three skeins. I just love them. And this could be a sweater for me. Like, I just love this. It's so nuanced. It's understated, it's moody, and next to the black you can really see how it changes. And then the tint, I loved the tint. I could also see the tint as being a sweater. Again, next to the white, you can really see how nuanced it is and how interesting it is. In these, I felt like these two were interesting in a different way from the middle. The middle is just middle. It's just middle. But these two I felt were a bit more interesting. And so from there, I did the CMY Triadic. So this again is middle, and this is your 50-50 tint, and then your 50-50 shade. And I thought these grays, like these grays just felt more modern. They felt more current, more modern, something you would see in interior design. They just felt more modern. But I have to admit, I was kind of more drawn to the RYB samples. I love these. They feel a bit purple to me, but I actually preferred the RYB samples. And then I'll show them to you side by side so you can see the difference. The RYB samples were warmer. I think that was one big difference. So those are the 7 of them side by side. Or no, I guess 8 of them. Yeah. So those were those. And then yesterday, reminds me a little of that combo spin you did once with the same colorway in 3 different bases. You made it into a sweater holding 2 together, I think. That combo spin, I feel like that was, I think I made the shifty cowl, if you're thinking about the fin study where I held that together. Or maybe, oh, the 3 different bases. Oh, Rebecca, you're really testing me. I can't remember. Yeah. Brittany says those are beautiful. Yeah, I think you're converting me. All right, so then last night I wanted to take it one step further. And it'll just take me a minute to get kind of organized. I just have to grab my complement blends here. So these were CMYK, these 6 here. So these are CMYK. And what I decided to do was I was really curious what would happen if I added black to each of them. And I knew that if I added a bunch of black, that they would really start to change. And so I thought, well, the original samples don't have any black in them. So maybe if I add a third black and then 2/3 black, a third black, 2/3 black, a third black, 2/3 black, that I would sort of get a good idea of what happened. And exactly what I thought would happen would happen. The yellow and purple complement blend started to go green. That's exactly what happens when you add black to yellow. Those grellos that I love so much, that I'm always waxing poetic about, and if you've watched the podcast over the years, you know how much I love grello. It's yellow with black added. My mom always laughs at me when I talk about grello, because she's like, it's not green, it's black. It shouldn't be called grello, it should be called bello or blello or something. Anyhow, you start to get exactly that. You get these like moody olivey greens, and they're, again, with the purple in there, with the magenta and the cyan, it makes it very rich. Very rich. And you can see that it progressively gets darker and more intense, more moody. Not a huge difference between the 1/3 and the 2/3 though. I found that, like, especially with this one here, this is the orange and blue and orange, cyan and orange. You can see that the difference between the 1/3 and the 2/3 isn't that much, but there's a huge difference between these two. And there needs to be, for a smooth value scale, there needs to be one in between here. So that was really cool. But again, very moody, very dark. And then the magenta one was really neat. It progressively got more purple with the black being added. And you can see the middle 1/3 there. It's a nice in between. So that was really fun doing those complements, and I finished those up last night. And then finally, I just need to grab it. I did CMYK orange shade. So this is the beginning of my next, spoiler alert, of my next series of samples is a tinting scale, is a shading scale. Sorry, I didn't mean tinting. A shading scale. So these go from, and eventually it'll go from white all the way across to the black. So eventually there will be 4 skeins over here that go all the way to the white. So this is black 80-20. So 80% black, 20% orange. So magenta and yellow, because this is CMYK. This one here is 60% black, 40% magenta and yellow. And then this one is 60-40, but 60% orange, 60 and 40% black, and then this one's 80-20. And it's funny because these two, the jump between these two is quite significant. You almost need one in here that is 70-30, to make this smooth. And then you also need 90-10 in here to make this jump smooth, which is really interesting to me, that over here, there's less of a differentiation, even though you're making big jumps from 60% to 80% to, from 40% to 60% to 80%, so 40, 60, 80 black. And yet on this side, you need more steps to make it smooth. But this is very smooth. Isn't that interesting? So, learning so much, so much. I don't even know where, like, I thought to myself before the podcast this morning, I was like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I just feel like I could maybe just do this for the rest of my life. Hence, feeling overwhelmed by my stash, because I don't want to spin stash anymore. I don't want to do big sweater spins anymore and big shawl spins and lots of sock spins. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to do this. So I could just go on and on. Yeah. That's right, Brittany. You just have to babble on. Exactly. Just keep on going. Like, don't stop. Why stop? So much fun. So that's all 35 skeins that I've done thus far. Some of this is coming up in the contrast of hue in March, and we'll go into depth about all of that. But I thought it would be really fun to start just sharing. There isn't really anywhere for me to share this stuff if it doesn't directly relate to the spinning pearls stuff. And Rebecca hosts the Wool Circle and does all of that. So this is the perfect venue for me to share all of the wool, the Year of Color stuff. And in the past, everything that I was working on in the background, all the sampling and all the making and you know, trying all the swatches and doing all the things, it was all reserved for spinning pearls or the Wool Circle. But now I feel like I've kind of been freed up a little bit to be able to share a lot of this stuff with you on the podcast. And you guys get to see a behind the scenes kind of view of what goes on and all the sampling, because I'm not quite so hamstrung by that anymore. I can share a little bit more with you guys, because we're studying very specific things in our Year of Color in the spinning pearls and the Wool Circle. So it does free me up to give you guys updates here on the podcast, which feels really, really good. So I'm glad that you're willing to listen to me wax poetic about all of my sampling. As you can see, this is what I really love. I find a lot of joy in just making all of these little samples and doing all of this little sampling. To me, it gives me it reestablishes for me why I do what I do and why I like to make this stuff, why the Year of Luxury was so much fun for me, because it was just working through a whole bunch of different fibers, spinning a whole bunch of different ways and sharing that all with you guys. And our Year of Socks was like that, you know, spinning all those different types of socks, working with all those different fibers and sampling them, and doing the Zoom Loom samples and doing the knitted samples, all the little swatches that I created that year. And, you know, up to that point, we had been doing the 51 yarn spin along. So again, you know, doing all that sampling and all that talking, that was all happening behind the scenes. And then I was sharing my bigger projects with you guys on the podcast. And for the first time, I feel like some of that is finally coming together in a space where I can finally share a lot of this stuff on the podcast proper, because it's not behind a smoke screen for other things. Does that make sense? So I'm really pleased to be able to kind of share this stuff with you guys. And I think you probably are able to see the joy that it brings me and the enthusiasm that it brings me. Whereas I think some of that sometimes is a bit hidden because it's happening behind the scenes. So it's really, really fun to be able to finally share that with you here. Yeah, Diana says, welcome to Small Batch Yarn Club. I would love to be a member of that club going forward. Thank you, Diana. And also, Diana, it's good to have you here. I've missed you not always being able to be here because you're often tied up at work. If anybody is curious about some of the sampling that other people in our community are doing, they are sharing a ton of it on the Ravelry group and also in the Slack channel under hashtag Year of Color. And if you want to do sampling for the monthly live stream at the end of the month that I was talking about earlier, that's Spinning Pearls, that premieres on the last Tuesday of the month, that's all of the community participation piece of the Year of Color. Just send me a note on the Slack channel and I'll add you to hashtag Spinning Pearls. And that's where people are sharing their stuff for that. And honestly, it's been so much fun watching what people are doing. Some people are doing just an unbelievable amount of sampling and making huge color wheels and tinting scales and value scales, and they're doing such amazing things. And then other people are doing a little bit less and just doing a few skeins, and then there's everybody in between. So it's really great that we've had so much variety. It's wonderful. Do what you can, participate how you can. We just love having you here. So with that, let's go into community participation. Thank you for listening to me once again. So Dana had a really good question actually. She said, so all of these samples are all blended on hand cards like Rebecca showed me. So that is how I started. Half of the samples, I would say probably about 15 or 16, were blended on hand cards exactly the way that Rebecca showed you. I'm only doing 2 to 5 gram samples. My samples are a little bit smaller. So I pulled out my jewelry scale, put a brand new battery in it because it was dead. And I've been doing 2 to 5 grams. So these bigger color wheels were 5 gram samples just because I wanted my color wheels to be a little bit heftier. But these samples that I've been doing over the weekend, these are only 2 grams. And honestly, to me, 2 grams is perfect because you can wind a bracelet ply on your wrist, and you don't have to try to manage a center pull ball or, you know, use your ball winder or whatever. You can just do it as from a bracelet plying thing. So that has worked really super well to do about 2 gram samples. And so on my hand cards, I've been really conscious not to overload them, keeping it very, very light. I have a photo in the Spinning Pearls PDF this month, if you have access to that content, which you do, Dana, of what the hand card looks like when it's fully loaded, how I load them and what the fiber looks like, and you can still see the carding cloth underneath. So I really try to lightly load my cards. And I started off by dizzing off the hand card, but it's not my favorite. I have to admit it's not my favorite. And what I ended up doing after about 15 or 16 samples, I actually went to my drum carder because I can card up about 3 samples at a time, just spread across the drum. And just in a purely time management place, I ended up just using my drum carder. Pulling off the nest of fiber, spinning them, going on to the next one, spinning them. So I actually placed in between each of the samples, I spun up each sample back to back to back. And I put a bit of white fiber in between. So I would spin one sample, put a bit of white fiber in between, just because it was really, really high contrast between some of these really dark samples. And put a little bit of white fiber, and then before I went on to the next sample, I tucked in a little sheet of paper that said what that sample was, so that when I went to do the bracelet ply, I knew as I was winding it off which one it was. So like, you know what, it was orange to black, 40-60, 2 grams to 3 grams. Orange to black, 60-40, 3 grams to 2 grams. So just really, really simple little tags like this. And I've kept these because I'm just going to reuse them for my next set of samples. I'll just cross out what's on there and mark the next. So that when I finished the bracelet ply, I knew exactly which sample that was, and I could put my tag on right away. So none of my samples are washed. I'm not going to bother. They're too small. It doesn't matter. They're not going to be knit with or woven with. I'm looking at this purely from a color perspective. Does that make sense? So I hope that helps. I'm just catching up on the chat before we go back to community participation. It's also because the learning is the end product. How true is that, Diane? Absolutely. Christine says, I did color blending on my drum carder for a shawl wrap I made a few years ago, but it hasn't been cold enough to wear it. Just looked and it was Kate Davies' otter pattern. Wonderful. She's got some awesome patterns out there. I haven't knit one of her patterns for years, and I always look at them and drool. Yeah, just making sure I'm not missing anything. My color wheel samples are super small, about 1/4 of an ounce, perfect. And you know, I don't know, Dion, would you agree? Like, I feel like to gain what we're trying to gain from these and the learning that we're trying to gain, and you want your fiber to go as far as possible so that you're not having to order even more. I feel like that's all you need. Like I in some ways I didn't need these to be 5 grams. They could have been 2 grams and that would have been more than enough. And to spin up 2 grams is really, really fast. These samples are 2 grams. These are 2 grams, and like, it's more than enough. They're big enough. They tell me enough information. They spun up really quickly. I feel like I don't need more than that personally. All right, let's go back to community participation because we are going to run out of time per usual. All right, so let me just get everything up on the screen here that I need. Rebecca says, I'm not washing mine either. I might put packing tape over my labels and wash them eventually. I do plan on using my samples in projects we'll discuss in March. Ooh, that's exciting. That's exciting, Rebecca. Kath says, I've been practicing my support spindling while spinning samples. That's awesome. That's a great way to learn support spindling at the same time, because these are just samples. It's not like, you know, it doesn't matter if they're a little bit, you know, beginner yarnish. That's totally fine. Dion says, yes, my tints and shades were about 1 ounce and that was too much. Yeah, see, I think 1 ounce is too much. You don't, I haven't personally felt like I needed that much to gain what I needed to gain. Okay, we're going to talk about this all day. So let's move on to our community makes and spins. So this was supposed to be last episode's community participation, and we ran out of time. So these are the general makes and shares that are going on in our community right now. And thank you so much to everybody for participating and for sharing and for posting your photos, your comments, your reflections. I really appreciate all of it. This is from Kat. Thought y'all might be interested in seeing my spun up sample from the unplanned fleece purchase. It spins up a treat if somewhat fuzzier than I expected. Isn't that brilliant? Beautiful yarn. Look at that sheen. Oh, I saw this and I thought, that is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And I think it's highlighted too because of the black in behind. You can really see the white of the yarn. It's just gorgeous. I'm sure that was unplanned in the photo, but it's very effective. The other thing, I was laughing when I first posted this because Kat said y'all. I had this friend back when we still lived in Vancouver. Her name was Rachel as well, and they were from Georgia. And her husband's name was Trip, which, you know, for those who are from the deep south, you know. And she used to just make me giggle because everything was, oh y'all. And I just used to, she has this very warm way of speaking. I really enjoyed her friendship. We lost touch when they moved back to the States, but I always think of her when I see people say y'all. Oh, Dion, you're absolutely right. I need to change that. I put 2022. Suzanne shares, I'm trying a bit of an experiment and making my own unspun yarn. It's a 3/4 Romney quarter Cormo fleece. Staple length varies from 4 to 6 inches. I used a 1/16 hole as a wire gauge for my Diz, 1.3 millimeter hook to pull it through. And I rolled it into a ball to work from while knitting. I started on US 4s, but I'm planning to try some larger sizes as I feel like the gauge is too tight. I'm losing the softness of the roving, or is it called sliver? If it doesn't have any twist added to, which one has twist added? Is it the sliver that has twist? I can never remember. While it's interesting so far, I don't love working with it in the same way that I enjoy milled unspun yarns. This is very airy, so I'm going to try leaving it for a few days, see if it gets compacted a bit and easier to work with. Has anyone else ever tried making your own unspun yarn? So I am so curious about this. And one of the things that I found with the unspun roving that Brittany actually gifted me, that I made that sweater from, that I wear that sweater all the time. I wish I had knitted at a slightly looser gauge. It is really, really dense. And I actually found when I was knitting with it, I was like, yeah, I could probably go up a needle size. And I think if I were to knit that sweater again, which I have enough roving to do, I think that's exactly what I would do. I would go up half a needle size from 4.5 to 5. Yeah. All y'all is also useful because English doesn't have a super obvious second plural. I say y'all sometimes just to make the Canadians laugh. Nothing wrong with giggling Canadians. We do giggle a lot. This is from Kelly. This is so beautiful. Now that the holidays are packed away and I've reclaimed my living room, it's time to get back to spinning. First up is a 100% Charolais top I got at the Fiber Fair this past autumn. The colorway is Dune Climb, and it's a wool I've not played with before, so I pulled a chunk off to sample, and it's spinning pretty finely. I'm not an experienced spinner, so getting a 2-ply that measures around 20 wraps per inch is mind-boggling. It's 4 ounces. I think I'm going to divide the braid into 3 color groups and spin all the blues, all the creamy pinks, and all the yellows to make one long beach-inspired gradient. Beautiful. Love your sample. Well done, Kelly. That's a great thought, Brittany, going back to Suzanne's question about the unspun roving. I wonder if using a bit of an oil while dizzing off super skinny roving would help densify it. Interesting. You'll have to sample, Suzanne, and let us know. You could also add a little bit of a half twist every time you pull it off to add a bit of a twist to it. So it's not spun, but it's got a little bit of a twist. You might find that you need your same needles, that you wouldn't want to upsize needles in that sense, but you're just adding that little bit to kind of twist those fibers down just a little bit. Might give you a little bit of stability in the knitting too. This is from Amanda. I had a little bit each of Z Twist and S Twist singles left at the end. So of her, this was her Radnor study, her Radnor yarn. So she made a little bundle, a little puddle of boucle. I had a little bit of Z Twist singles left on the bottom from the red braid, and had started by my blue single just by adding on from there. So I ended up with some red in there as well. From the red in the core of the boucle. Rather than a binder, I just plied the boucle back on itself to make a 2-ply boucle. Isn't that pretty? It's gorgeous. Love this. And I think a 2-ply boucle, it would be more, I wonder if it would feel a little bit hardier, like a little bit denser, a little bit more, je ne sais quoi, what's that word? Just a little bit more solid. I can't think of the right word. Puddle of boucle. I love it. Yeah, right? I love Amanda's use of words. I feel like if you plied the boucle back on itself, it would just have a certain stand up on its ownness that just using a binder that it wouldn't have to the same extent, because you've made a cabled yarn. You've made a 4-ply. Sorry, not a cabled yarn. You've made a 4-ply basically. So super interesting. This is from Tashiana. Tashi is actually going to be on Woolen Spinning Radio coming up March 1st when that episode is released. Thank you, Diana. Words. Substantial. That's the word I was looking for. Substantial. That was the word. Tashi is, me and Rebecca sat down with her yesterday to talk with her. She's the host of Stitches and Starlight on YouTube. Definitely check her out. And she shared her origin story, her love of D&D, all of things that inspire her, what she's doing with her making, how she got into what she's doing. That's coming up on Woolen Spinning Radio. So that will be available anywhere you get your podcasts. So Google Play, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. That's going out into the world March 1st. Back in the lab, aka my bedroom, and designing a yarn for a collar I plan on knitting. It's BFL and Coopworth fleece, Suffolk fleece, alpaca sari, and Tussa silk and dyed Targhee top that I ran through 3 times on my carder. Isn't that incredible? C'est incroyable, just beautiful. This reminded me a lot, actually, when I saw this, I immediately assumed that Tashi had bought these bats from Brittany of Crux Fibers, who's in the chat today. I just immediately was like, oh, that's one of Brittany's. And then of course I read the post. I was like, oh wait, no. Well done, Tashi. This is from Diana. Isn't this swoon worthy? I thought this photo was just perfecto. It was just perfect. A fleet of spindles being liberated today. I wound a 2-strand plying ball that ended up being 203 grams. This is all from my Sweet Georgia Advent. AIM is a gradient yarn. Isn't that, I can't wait to see this yarn plied. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And look at all those spindles. There's Enid Ashcroft's in there, Alan Berry. There's a Kapar. I think that's a Kapar, that top top roll spindle. What else is in there, Diana? There's a Volchuk art. There's a woodland handcraft. I see at least one. There's a, what else is in there? Yeah. Oh, it's just incredible. Amazing. Yeah. Carrie Cherry. There's a Mirkwood in there. At least one. Yeah. Spindle envy is happening. Oh, there's a silly salmon. You're absolutely right, Dion. How could I forget them? Yeah, amazing. Incredible. This is also from Tashi because she's been learning to spindle spin. Support spindle spin, I mean. So 7 days of wonder in a basket. And look, the spindle that's on the bottom there that almost looks like a tulip, I'm having serious spindle envy. Talking about stashing down and, you know, using our tools and not acquiring stuff beyond life expectancy, blah, blah, blah. I saw that one and I was like, 1 week of showing up to my practice and doing the work, and it is such a delight to have all of this to show for. Still kind of shocked, not gonna lie. Of course, she's just learning. Isn't this incredible? Just learning. Amazing. Yeah. There's a new square one. It's called the Helen Maudsley from Winnipeg. Alexina Hicks. The tulip is a Texas Jane, I'm sure, says Dion. I don't need to know that. Texas Jane, I really, really want a tulip spindle. Yeah, you and me too. You and me both, Christine. Yeah, we'll purchase used support spindles to help people stash. Good idea, Kristen. Good idea. I have the tulip one from Texas Jean. Oh, or Texas, is it Texas Jean? Yeah, Texas Jean. This is from Rebecca. I finished my experimental scarf-shaped object. I'm probably going to cut it up and make a wall hanging, but it came really rumpled out of the wash. I don't want to iron it because of the fire star and all the nice art yarn texture. Would you wet block it like knitting or iron it under a wet towel? So I think you could do one of two things, Rebecca. I was kind of curious to hear what people in the chat thought because, yes, there's Firestar in there and you've got that nice textured yarn, but you could steam it. And the other option is, yeah, you could totally wet block it. So just pin it out the way that you want it. You could also use the tip of the iron with a wet cloth or like with a, a lightweight tea towel in between and try to just press the cream areas, the areas where your art yarn isn't present. This was a whole bunch of experimentations on hand-woven lace. So there's Brooks Bouquet, there's Spanish lace in there, there's Danish medallion, there's lino, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. It's just fantastic. Dana suggests steaming it under a towel. Yeah. Dion says to steam it. Yeah, I definitely think steaming would do the trick. And if it was still damp after steaming, then you could pin it out to make sure that it dries completely flat and then go from there. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you for sharing all that you do. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here and for using the hashtag woolen spinning. I've often thought about actually having a segment where I just go on Instagram live and just scroll through the hashtag woolen spinning because there's so much there. And just to acknowledge all the people that share and, you know, the hashtag use your hand spun, like just keep using them. I've thought about doing that and just like scrolling through the tiles and acknowledging just what people are doing and what people are making. Christine says, wear the scarf as is, no one will notice any wrinkles. I think it's because she wants to hang it on the wall. Yeah, Dana says, what a great show. Thank you, Dana. So don't forget to join the giveaway. I posted the link earlier, but I will post it again. It is a Survey Monkey. Please hop on over, give me and Rebecca some feedback about what you want to see more of. And I think that's everything for today. Next Tuesday, same time, same place, 10 a.m. Pacific, we will have the premiere of part 2 of Spinning Pearls this month, which is on optical mixing and creating that elusive thing called mud, which is very, very difficult to do, as evidenced by all of my skeins. In the attempt to create mud, I was not able to, but more on that next week. So if there's anybody else, or if there's any other questions, I can definitely address them now. Please don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you, Diana. And please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We hit a huge threshold back in January. We hit 10,000 subscribers, and honestly, as much as I don't love the algorithms, they really do help the show get out there, and it helps other spinners, other knitters see the show and to show up and join our community. So thank you for taking a moment to do that. I really appreciate it. And it really does. It helps me and Rebecca to get the word out there. So until next time, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy sampling, happy year of coloring. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you same time, same place next Tuesday. Bye, everyone.